Well, you should be used to that. Anyway,
Wow.
So, last week the party had defeated their first real threat. A 30-foot tall... Also, I didn't mute the stream, and the first sound that comes across is wow.
That's good.
And killed their first major threat, a 30-foot tall, 90-foot long adder. Relatively small by most standards, but still a major threat to the town of Forsheim. Unfortunately, in bringing down the beast, the rigging done by their compatriots was not the most sturdy, as the beast's pure weight was able to lift the pegs, the large counterweights that had held the chains and chain nooses in place, were lifted free of the ground, and under high tension had quite literally wreaked devastation across the entire field behind them. Now standing in a field that was a tree line just a few seconds before, red mist and splinters are still raining down from above. Bertolt awakens probably about 200, 300 feet from the scene to the sound of an almost deafening crack as probably a dozen trees are cut down instantly.
Oh my god, where am I?
You're not much further than where you were originally. You had gone to engage the beast, and unfortunately, in its sort of deftly charge, been cast aside along with many multiple stones and landed hard on your head. Though your helmet protected you from any significant damage, you had lost consciousness for a few moments. The rest of the group, you are mostly still holding on to the adder. With the exception of Zygmunt and Brita, who were riding alongside.
Well, first thing Berholt's going to do when he gets up, he's going to assess the situation. He doesn't see the adder anymore, and it's fairly quiet now. There's no roaring or anything of the sort, so it's safe to assume that it's probably been downed, right? Or it's either it's been downed or it's killed everybody and it's gone away.
It's definitely down. You can still see the tail of the adder sticking out from the tree line.
Oh, gotcha. Okay. Oh, well, that's a relief, and so he would hard to kind of do in full plate harness, but he's going to try and figure out how if he's taken any kind of damage. You take his helmet off and then touch the sore spots on his head, see if there's might be any fractures or anything.
No, you're actually in pretty good shape.
Oh, well, he's more pissed off than anything that he missed the fun, so to speak, even though it's clearly things have been a little bit of a mess, given that there's still a fair bit of blood mist raining down on the terrain about them. So he would clip his helmet down onto his side and run towards the where the downed adder is and see if who's survived.
In the blood mist and splinters, and quite literally having gotten a very good first-hand look, are Zygmunt and Rita, who were there when the chains gave way. In fact, Zygmunt had just picked up the hat of someone he had bumped into, a large working man named Bruno that he'd known for several months now. But when he stood up to return the hat, the upper half of the man's body was completely missing.
Zygmunt simply drops the hat and, hands up to his, the back of his head and just looks at the devastation, just trying to see if there's any chance anybody in the company that wasn't currently attached to the adder survived.
Yeah, Brita would be scouring the area pretty quickly and just trying to... She'd actually start to move away from where she had been standing and immediately go to see if anyone was left alive at all. At least out of the people that are, now partially made of mist.
Well, you could actually see the effect of the chain. It's very hard to see the chain until it's almost 20 meters away from you because it's moving so fast, but you can just see things being shot towards the sky in a way that defies gravity. Parts of carts, bags of supplies, one half of a horse, the back end of another, the head of an ox, just everything flying up as this chain just sort of rather surprisingly and smoothly cuts a path of destruction away from the adder. It takes only seconds, but it just, from the pure observational standpoint, it feels like it takes several minutes. You can kind of see things in an almost disturbing amount of detail as this chain finally slows to a stop. Hearing and the sound kind of comes back. It was almost silent as it passed, but as it kind of finally comes to a stop and you can tell it's no longer cutting its way across the group, you just hear the cracking of trees as large trees kind of lean against one another, not quite able to fall down because there were so many of them, but only held together purely by pressure.
Well, when everything settles, Rita would start to kind of pick her way amongst the people who had been there and were now mostly cut in half. And yeah, just see if anyone's still alive or has wounds that are worth salvaging.
Jurgen, Orist, you are still on the adder. You had just narrowly missed being caught up in those chains when it grabbed the beast. And now, by happenstance, you happen to be in one of the safest places. What's your view on all this?
Jurgen's basically, as soon as the chains started the beast getting caught up in the chains, Jurgen would have flattened himself against it as much as possible, axe still dug into one of the weak spots between plates for as much of a grip, but just try to make himself as small a target. And he'd more or less stay put until he heard, the last of the snapping of trees and the rending of bodies, before finally, when it sort of starts to go quiet, he would hold on with one hand to the axe embedded in the beast and flip up his clap visor to try and see if he can get a good vantage or see what he can see from where he is before just calling out, "Is anyone still alive?"
Hi!
That's one. Orist? Anyone else?
Zygmunt finally finds his words and said, "Over here."
Zygmunt. Brita?
Yep, looking for more. She's already like up to her elbows in blood just from poking around bodies.
Orist has climbed up a little further and is just like, friend Elena is fine as well. Do not worry. It's yes, it's a little less valuable now, but there's much we can do with shards.
She broke the core?
Yes.
Jurgen curses under his breath, and now that the beast, I'm assuming, is sort of listing onto one side since it's fallen.
Yeah.
Jurgen manages to pull his axe out of the plate, and oh no, who would we lose?
I'm an idiot. I'm sorry. I clicked on something. Keep going.
Oh, okay. Jurgen frees his axe from the plate and sort of one hand steadying himself comes to a uneven stand as he examines what he can see. I assume there's still a lot of splinters and misty blood in the air, so not the best vision, but looks out to see what he can see.
Well, you can see you can see almost like two parabolas heading out from where the beast is. And to both sides you see some places the chain has gotten so low that it has cut the grass that had grown up between the trees. And in other places it's literally cutting trees in half as much as 30 feet in the air. The chain just in an almost pure sense of chaos, cut outwards from both directions. You can see what were, quite full carts of supplies originally shattered, almost as if they had been picked up and dropped from a great height. Many of the pack animals that you had known cut to ribbons. Just literally such, not because of some sharp edge, because of the pure energy that it was transferred through these creatures. They look almost like as if they were cut cleanly. But that didn't stop the destruction from going through them. In fact, it seemed like it took probably like anywhere from 10 to 20 horses and oxen and probably an equal number of men before the chain finally slowed down enough that it was leaving any sorts of complete bodies behind. Arno would have been at the front of that line, unfortunately.
Jurgen sort of strokes his chin, realizing that at this moment in time, nobody is in charge. If Arno is dead, which it truly seems he would be, since the chain would have sliced cleanly through where he is, and realizing that nobody's in charge, he's going to start howling out orders from his position, because they're in a mess. Brita, I need you to start collecting the wounded. See if you can find any men still alive.
I'm on it. That's what I've been doing.
Zygmunt, help her as best you can. Orist. This is chaos, but these men cannot have died for nothing. We need to start getting ready to collect what we can from this beast before it exsanguinates into the dirt.
I have already begun looking. We should collect... I have a few ideas to collect as much blood as possible.
Let's see if we can get to the carts and find any supplies that are still intact.
I imagine at this point, Berthold would finally get to the scene and start looking over the devastation, and just kind of slowly scratch his head. He's no stranger to battlefields and everything, being a former Teutonic knight, but it's quite a bit different seeing just the sheer carnage that chain caused, and so it kind of just, even for someone like him, it brings him to a pause, and he just kind of stands there looking for a moment before he probably notices Jurgen and goes up to him and asks him what the hell happened.
Jurgen kind of looks down. Oh, I see you're awake now, Berthold. Berthold. The company laid a trap for the beast, but unfortunately when the chains broke it, and Jurgen just kind of gestures with his free hand out towards what's going on. We need help making sure that taking care of any men that are still alive, as well as starting the collection process.
All right, what about the ones that are alive but not in one piece?
If they can't be cared for by Miss Brita, give them God's mercy.
So it must be.
Well, with that particular cheery point of things,
Yeah.
Brita,
Yes.
the description of a battlefield is actually not inaccurate. This looks a lot like some of the battlefields that you may have seen growing up. And I say growing up because this is a fairly tumultuous time. There's been many a battle going on, especially near Stuttgart, which was your hometown originally. There are some scenes that almost seem idyllic. You'll find upper halves of people still stuck frozen in cheers of excitement. You'll find bodies that are in perfect condition, but their heads are missing. You'll find bodies that look literally like they had been dissected, just in multiple pieces. Animal innards are skewered all over the place, and literally whole trees are painted red. Not misted, as the air is kind of full of smoke, mist, splinters, and blood, but literally painted red. There's not many survivors. Probably about 30 meters away from where you had started checking bodies for life, you'd see that some of the porters, pretty recognizable because they were wearing very obvious company colors, just in a fit of panic, as soon as they had kind of come to, were running away. They just had lost what little semblance of control they had and ran away from this monster and this sight of blood.
Are they completely gone then?
They're pretty much gone.
All right.
Whether they
I
come
won't
back
worry about
later
that.
is yet to be seen. But
Yeah.
they in a true panic, they have run for the hills. The carts, most importantly, strangely enough, are in as bad a shape as the people that you would come across. You'll find axles split in half that had been probably 6 to 8 inches of strong black forest hardwood, just shattered like they were nothing. There would be 1 or 2 survivors, probably people you wouldn't know very well. These would have been porters, surveyors, trackers, the people that were sort of secondary members of the company. Most of them absolutely covered in blood. Not because of them, but because they were lucky enough to have been close to someone that was hit, and they had been tossed aside by, in some cases, body parts. You find one man who was actually killed because he was impaled by the head of an oxen that had been decapitated. Pinned to a tree. Rather unpleasant way to go. All in all, there's not much to salvage. Those that were
Well-
able to run under their own power have left.
Well, anyone who had wounds that were not going to be killing them within the next 5 minutes, which I imagine, like you said, is just a very small handful of people. She would gather up as best as she could, and with Zygmunt, who's with her, with Zygmunt's help, kind of get them all into one place. And she would also be keeping an eye out for what's-his-bucket, the leader dude, whose name completely fucking escapes me.
Arno.
Yeah, Arno.
Yes.
She would be keeping out an eye for Arno, because it definitely does look like this is pretty much almost complete total carnage, but it would be nice to at least have a confirmation on that.
Okay. Give me a D6 roll.
D6 roll. Okay. Well, fuck.
You are able to find one person who is not in the process of or going to die in the
Jesus.
next few minutes.
You're a lucky bastard. Let's get you over here. She doesn't say that. No, she would be very excited to find someone who has actually got hope, and she would do her best to. I don't know what's wrong with them.
Well, they're missing a leg. More specifically, the leg
Okay.
seems to have been cut off right below the hip, right through the middle of their thigh.
Okay, well then she. Wait. So is there like no stump left to tie a tourniquet around?
No, there's enough of a stump there,
Okay.
like right through the middle of the thigh.
All right, I thought you meant like right up against the hip. I'm like, so she can't even fucking like.
No,
put a
not
rope
that
around
clean.
it. All right. Well, then yeah, her first move would be to tie something around the bleeding stump to try and stop the blood loss that I'm assuming is quite great, and then have Zygmunt help her carry him over to some of the carts that aren't damaged to kind of sit him up on it.
Well, almost all the carts are damaged, but you are able to find one that is
Well, you know,
enough that you can use it
sturdy
as a
enough to
carry.
sit someone on.
Right,
Yeah.
of course. Do you want to try to stabilize this guy?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. So we're gonna use the healing rules.
Let's see. All right.
So you're going to be rolling a melancholic plus 2d6 plus melancholic.
So do I click to roll the melancholic and then roll 2d6?
No, that's included. That's included.
Okay.
That's a 9. Which, according to this, means... I'm just intentionally showing this because... Oh, okay. So... You are able to stabilize him. Unfortunately, he doesn't respond well to your medicine.
Meaning what?
It means he throws it back up.
Oh.
So, unfortunately, you're going to lose that piece of stock. You had 3 to begin with.
Okay.
And on top of that, they are going to... Well, they're going to do a hell of a lot more than the splinting, so they're not going to be moving very fast for very long.
Yeah.
So, you have saved his life. Unfortunately, you're down 2 things of stock of 3 that you started with.
Okay.
Because 1 to stabilize him, 1 that he threw back up when you tried to give it to him.
Ungrateful little shit.
Basically.
Zygmunt just puts a hand on Rita's shoulders, like, don't worry. With this blood, we'll be able to replenish our stock.
Oh, I'm just wanting to make sure that he's...
He seems like he's going to live. You've done a fairly decent job of cutting off the blood flow. And with the addition of the medicine, you can already see that the stump looks a little less... how should I put it? Ragged.
Gotcha.
I guess would be the way to put it. A little more pale, a little less bloody.
Mhm.
So a net win. You saved someone's life.
A net win. We saved one person's life. How many were with us?
Overall, the company was about 60 people.
I would say it's about 50 people that
Alright.
we lost.
Yeah.
So give or take, we basically walked away a success.
Now,
It
not
doesn't
all of
matter.
them died. Some of
Some
them
of them ran away,
straight up
yeah.
ran away.
Well, they're cowards anyways.
Now do mark XP if you haven't already,
Oops.
because that was a
Yeah.
melancholic roll.
Yeah, thank you for reminding me.
You're welcome. So let's go to... by the way, you do find what you think is Arno, but it's hard to tell.
Well, then she would just leave well enough alone. It's not like she's gonna take a piece of his face back. Guys, does this look right?
Well, you find his rather distinctive fur coat that he was wearing, but it's just that part. Like, you find multiple bodies in the area that wore similar armor, but most of the people that were higher up in the company wore the same Kletterpanzerung.
Mm-hmm.
So you find an upper body and nearby the fur piece,
Gotcha.
but no head. Unfortunately, he was very close to the center area and was most likely, if he was still standing there and didn't dig a hole, would have been hit by both chains.
Gotcha.
Jurgen,
Yes.
you took command.
Not of much, apparently.
Not of much remaining. But it seems like people are starting to follow your orders. Are you going to get down off the adder, or have you decided to make a house there?
Well, before I answer that, people are following my orders? Is it the porters starting to filter back into the area? So I need a point of, I
Not
can
yet.
yell at them. Okay,
Not
then
yet.
yes, I am going to get off the adder, because I not only do I need to yell at people, I also need to help out because we don't have a lot of hands going on.
You do not. And it'll be a few minutes before even the town guard would be out to talk with you. This was kind of a very sudden thing, and most people don't tend to stay too close when there's a fight with an adder going on, because unfortunately, things like this have happened, and in even greater scale in the past.
Absolutely. No, Jurgen will climb down from the adder, and he'll help Orist down as best he can,
Thank you, friend.
because they need to... this thing is bleeding into the dirt, and they need to get to the carts and see if they can find some barrels, as well as deal with... The men who are going to die are going to die. They need to make sure that this isn't for nothing at this point, is where his head's at.
So, Orist, what were you planning?
Orist will look around and pretty much just look around to see if there's any useful cart whatsoever. Or if everything's been destroyed.
I think the one that I
one
just used to
useful cart
assist someone on.
is currently covered in blood and has a guy whose leg is missing in it.
I can move them. Do you need me to move them?
I very much need this cart.
That's fine. And she just help me move him, please.
Yes, and as he's
I
moving,
am but a small woman.
he helps. And I am but a big man, so I will help. And he shouts out, Sigmund, I will help. I will need Adelbert's help as well with cart.
No, Adelbert is not dead.
I say, yeah, Zygmunt whistles for Adelbert to make sure he arrives.
Adelbert returns.
And then he looks to Jurgen while looking around for... while looking around to see if there's any barrels or whatnot.
I really, my Call of Cthulhu experience wants me to have you roll luck.
Yeah, I was.
Yeah.
Not at all.
Oh my god, that was exactly what I
To
was thinking.
essentially see, because essentially he goes, they must have taken something. See if we can salvage anything. I know at Mill there will likely be plenty, and that is where I'm headed. But Jurgen, you are right. We need to start working much away. Blood #1 priority.
Just roll me 1d6.
He couldn't help it.
It's not luck. Okay, you're able to find 4 barrels that are not either full of something else already, or not shattered and leaking their contents into the dirt.
All right.
But that's 4 good barrels. That's at 42 gallons apiece. That's
Math.
168 gallons equivalent that you could save directly, assuming you could actually get it into a barrel.
All right. At this point, he looks to Jurgen and he says, "Like, if you can figure out anything traditional way now, see what you can say. But I will be back soon. I just need to go back to Mill, get more supplies."
Okay.
So since there's not a whole lot of survivors left, can I use Zygmunt's knowledge of adder anatomy to kind of figure out a good place to try and bleed the rest of this adder from?
Yeah, you could. So do you have what would that would do? That'd
I
be
think it'd probably be like
melancholic, pretty
melancholic,
straight. Yeah. So
Yeah.
why don't you just give me a melancholic roll for that? Unless you have a move associated.
My move is +1 harm, which I don't think it's
Oh
gonna do.
no, you don't want to do one. +1 harm would just be a squirts. Oh wow.
Oh well, okay then.
Well, okay, I'll roll 2 6s.
So yeah, as luck would have it, the body has kind of landed at an angle, and you actually realize that sort of towards the base of the tail would probably be the lowest point of the body, since it can no longer compartmentalize itself in order to try to prevent the loss of blood and therefore loss of function. The lowest point is the most logical place to put that you would make an incision.
So before Jurgen can really look to it, Zygmunt just kind of signals over, bring the barrels over here. We'll drain it from this end.
Berthold would help with that. He would grab the nearest.
And yeah, Berthold, help me pry off these plates.
He'd grab a barrel, then bring it over, and then help begin to use his poleaxe to begin prying off plates. So once the barrel's in place, anyway. Do you want me to roll for that?
To pull the plates apart? Is that what you're
Yeah.
asking? Yes,
Yes.
please do. Not to succeed, but how long it takes.
Okay.
So whatever choleric, what is it that you have?
Yeah.
What would you? You're not using a lever. You're using Bertholdt's guns, as it were. Okay, yeah, you'd still be able to do it. Mark XP, by the way. It's going to take a little longer than it should. Like, for a downed beast, you'd think, well, it's just leverage, right? But apparently, the muscular connections that these plates have are surprisingly stiff, even after they've quote unquote died. Of course, you being a strong believer, you may not necessarily believe that they were ever quote unquote alive to begin with. They could just be horrible demonic things that don't actually live. But that's for another discussion.
Right.
With that barrel in place and the blood starting to leak into that, Berthold would go get the other barrels and have them basically kind of line up next to each other so that the other ones can be effectively wiggled out of the way whenever they start getting full.
All right.
Well, it's a. Sorry, go ahead, Ted.
Sorry.
No, I was just going to clarify that it is a good thing that you are one of the people doing it, you and Zygmunt, because these barrels were made of strong black forest hardwood. They're probably about 120 pounds apiece, empty. So they are definitely a bit of a bear to move, but luckily, since they are empty, a little bit easier on your back. And certainly if rolled, you could probably get them pretty far, though the ground is a bit of a disaster right now. It'd be very difficult to roll it very far without running into bodies.
Just coating it in blood.
Yeah. And in fact, that may just be a foregone conclusion. These barrels may just be soaked in blood. Certainly there's been enough spilled and put in the air. Orist, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, returning to kind of the site of the mill, after kind of hooking up Adalbert to the cart so that he'd be able to use horsepower, he would return, and first he'd grab, just essentially quickly go through the wreckage to get kind of scraps of, once again, the pipe and some. Would there be any kind of sheets of hammered out metal scraps and fragments?
I'm gonna need a roll. That's gonna be. God, I really want to spot hidden really badly.
I know.
You guys are nerds.
I'm gonna go with give me a melancholic on that. I'm sorry. I want to see spot hidden, but I'm assuming you're searching through the ruins.
How about this?
Okay.
Let's not say he is. Let's kind of move on the barrel thing. Let's say that he's hefting, like, heavy debris, heavy piping. Looking to see if there's any more of these barrels around.
Yes, that is a great.
Like
he is
pulling scraps loose.
There you go. I'll accept that. And
Heyo!
she got a 13. Orist is manly man.
Yeah, that's. And Oris comes back with a cart full of scrap. And how many more barrels would you say that he was, if any, was?
You know what? Just give me 1d6 for a 13. I'll give you 1d6 plus 1. How's that?
Heyo!
Come back with 7
Oris
more
comes
barrels.
back and he's glistening with sweat.
Oh my god.
Because
Wow.
you have a specialty in processing, I will tell you, based on the information you know there's not that much blood left. But it never
Rita
hurts
has
to have
that
extra
specialty
barrels.
Too. So does she
Well-
know that?
Well, you would as soon as you saw him come back with 7 more barrels.
Gotcha.
Orist, however, his thought is, it's just like, if there's never that much blood left with traditional methods. So Orist is then going to pretty much grab Zygmunt on the shoulder and look at and say, "Friend, I know you know your way around these western beasts more than I do. Tell me, I know you're going for the best spot right now. Where would you say blood would also pool?"
It's
You don't have to roll for that. You got a
Okay.
13.
yeah.
I would say most likely somewhere near the thigh. Just a little bit up, a little more.
So yeah, Zygmunt will kind of.
If you're looking for another lower point.
Only other part would be maybe the thigh where it's laying. He kind of gestures up the body a little bit more.
So, all right. So Orist is then going to get to work in kind of a two-part thing. First, he's going to go to where Zygmunt suggested, kind of look for a weak part, and then essentially kind of connect a couple of the scrap pipes together, knowing that there'll be some loss and it won't be as efficient since they're not firmly secured, but just kind of using some of the burlap and winding it well, and then hammering the pipe in and essentially attempting to tap the adder.
Zygmunt gets done moving one of the barrels out of the way and then pauses just to stare at Oris's invention.
That there's no reason that would not work.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to decide if I should even make you a roll for it because that's exactly how that works.
He's then going to take the kind of sheets of metal.
Okay.
And just after kind of the taps, knowing that those would work well, working quickly just with, the tools available that both he would have brought and probably would have been around, try to pound some of the big metal pieces into somewhat of a V shape to a point. Like, just put a bend in them, and then go up to the wounds they made that would just be kind of rapidly bleeding, and just kind of pound that sheet of metal in to try to focus it into one stream.
Yeah, I am gonna need a roll for that. Simply because those wounds are on top of the beast.
Yep. No, this is like he essentially wants to secure what's
I
certain first, and then is going to, and this is going to be like once again using his superior Northman strength, is going to kind of heft a barrel up and tie it off with a rope and put it up against like his makeshift V-shaped thing, and essentially just try to secure everything so that the barrel can stay that way as it just essentially pours from the wound into the barrel.
Okay, I do believe this would count for your using your move. You left this behind, friend.
Yes, it would.
Because you're using equipment salvaged on site.
Also, yep.
But I would definitely say this falls. Typically, I would say melancholic, but you are trying to force these in place in field, and that's why I'm wondering whether choleric would be a better choice. What tools do you have on you? Your whole set of tools?
Can I be the dick player?
You know what? Go for it.
You told me that these wounds are up on top of the adder.
Uh-huh.
And I have a move that reads, when constructing a device on top of an adder, it counts as a basic move using melancholic.
And I guess you're using melancholic.
All right.
That's not a dick move, by the way. That's an act.
Yeah. So this is +1 because of the new move.
Yes.
So I'm just making this melancholic 3.
Yep. Which is the max bonus you can utilize.
And it's switched back
that
to
gets you a
melancholic
10. So yes, I'm going to give you an additional 20 gallons out of that.
Heyo.
So
We've got the problem. How are we going to cart this out of here with all the blood on the ground? It's going to get stuck in the mud.
Bertolt is not wrong.
We'll have to. We'll need help from in town as the porters have fled. I suppose if we could bargain with some of the local guilds, we might even be able to convince them to bring up their own men to cart away the blood they purchase from us. What if the bile, though?
If need be, I can run back into town. I'm only really sitting here babysitting this man right now.
Well, shouldn't he need your medical attention?
I can't do anything more for him at this point.
I'm also
Would you need
concerned
Adelbert for
is,
anything else?
has there been any reports of any other mercenary groups about, or even bandits? We're rather low on numbers.
No,
And
but we
this
must
is,
take the strictest precautions with our catch.
yeah, we need to head back to town and procure some help and get this taken care of. Otherwise, we could lose it all.
Zygmunt might agree to borrow Adelbert.
That's what I was about to suggest in case unless Oris needed him for anything else.
Don't know. Good horse did good job. Very happy.
So Zygmunt reaches in his pocket where he happened to have one extra apple and feeds Adelbert, and then pats him lovingly on the side, and then says, "Brita, he'll take you. And do you think that man can survive the trip?"
I'll take him with me. Yeah, he's only missing a leg. I think he could be okay with that. Just someone help me get him up on the horse, please.
You'll want to probably tie him down to there, otherwise he'll probably fall.
That is a good call.
So you all are sending Brita and the legless man, well, the man who lost a leg, not legless.
The one-legged man.
We'll
The
call him
legless
John
man
Wick.
named Legolas.
Oh my god. That's almost better.
Out of character question.
Yes.
The outer plates and everything, those can be pried off to make the armor and such, right?
They do need to be pried off, yes.
Okay.
Well, I know where one is. Just already previously pried off.
True, but I guess is the most efficient way to use weapons, or is there like specific tools to use to pry them off?
There's generally specific items.
Chain hooks and
There is something you all should know, and being so close to town, this makes it very convenient. You can actually hire specialists to help process this beast.
That was actually what I was about to. As Brita would get up into the saddle, Jurgen would approach her and the horse, pulling the gauntlets off his hands so that he can work better with just his bare hands. Brita, if there are any men in town who specialize in processing, as well as day tailors, agree to their price and bring them up here. We could use the extra help, especially as we get into the plates and the bile.
Sounds good to me.
Yeah, the biles especially. Both the armor plate and the bile are two of the most difficult things to process. Blood flows freely, but the black bile is fairly deep inside the beast, in a large vestigial organ that is commonly referred to as the liver, but bears very little actual resemblance. In fact, there's no real understanding of what this giant organ does, but it produces one of the most valuable byproducts of the beast. The armor plate itself can be several tons of material. And because some of them can grow to be as large as 30 feet square, they're very difficult to move, especially with only 5 or 6 people.
So how big was the one that was ripped off and nearly took Zygmunt and Adelbert out?
Probably about anywhere from 5 to 7 feet
Okay.
length and about probably 6 to 7 feet in width.
Mm-hmm. So,
Jurgen. No, go ahead, Tyler.
No, by all means. I didn't
right.
really have anything to say there. So
Okay, well, Jurgen starts to step away from Brita before pausing and again still fiddling with the other gauntlet. Turns and looks at her again. Agree to their price, but try to drive the price down first, my dear.
Yes, Jurgen.
Jurgen would nod and go back to whatever needs to be done now that they've kind of got the blood situation relatively under control.
Okay. There really isn't much to be done on the adder except wait at this point, unless you all are going to attempt to try to do the armor yourself.
Orist, I just have a. Orist is kind of from a culture that knows how valuable kind of shards and cores are.
Mm-hmm.
And also would probably know how dangerous they would be. Would he be able to start collecting those shards himself?
Yes, he would, but I'm going to handle Brida's scene first, if that's
Yeah,
okay.
no, I just, 100%.
I was just clarifying because the blood is literally a matter of time thing at this point. You all have invested the rolls, you've tapped it. Gravity is doing your work at this point.
Yep. So if that's the case, that's what Orist is going to, because that's one of the things he is most interested in, and is, maybe there's a little bit of glee to him as it, because he did not expect to. Most people don't want shards to happen. This is just happy little accident for him.
True. The reason I'm clarifying is because if anyone else wants to go into town, they're probably free to do so.
Bertolt would stay behind for two reasons. One, in case anybody attempts to try to start deciphering the adder, yeah, he's going to try to defend them. And two, as grim as it is, they need to start looting their former comrades' bodies of their possessions, because they're not going to use them anymore. Whereas we go.
That is very true.
Yeah, they don't need it. Jurgen, at the same time, while Bertolt might be going about the process of cleaning them of any of their valuables, Jurgen is going to be gathering the bodies and, as he gets them together, start performing their final rites for burial.
Okay. Anything specific you're going to do as far as those are concerned?
No, just more or less pile up everything that he can find. He'll dig a hole later.
Okay, that's a lot of body parts.
Yeah, it's gonna take a while.
Okay, cool. Give me a choleric roll just so we can see how that goes for you.
Not
That's
that great.
gonna take you a long time. So we'll check back on you in a little while.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot more arms and legs than you thought there'd be. So Brita,
Oh boy.
Yes.
as you come back in town, you can literally see the guard has been kind of standing at the periphery. They're still at their post, in quote unquote, but have moved as far towards the scene of the fight as they could. It's at this point you realize you're really amazingly close to town. Maybe a 5-minute ride on a horse at best. And as you look back, you can actually see the clouds of smoke and splinters in the air where you were. There's still this kind of pink haze over the area several minutes later. But as you sort of ride by, the guards are all kind of... At first, there's sort of a stunned silence. And then this cheer just kind of goes up among the guards as you start riding towards the gate. Do you do anything about their cheers, or do you just ride past them, ignoring them completely?
What kind of men are these again? Guards?
These are guards. These are city guards.
I would say that she would have them go back and help, but do they actually want that? Is that useful, or are these not the right people?
I mean, they're guards.
Right, but I mean, do they
probably
just
not all
need
of them
manpower, or?
Well, if they want to protect their kill, they need manpower, because there could be people who try to make claim on it. This close to town, it is somewhat unlikely. Bandits generally are not that bold, But there might be a few people trying to slip in, and certainly trying to take advantage of all the dead bodies and their belongings.
Okay, well, I only ask because I don't have a very good grip on that shit, but I'm sure that she would. So, as she's riding through, when they begin to acknowledge her, she would rein in Adalbert a little bit and just kind of cut them off and be like, "Oh, actually, help them. They need help. They need men."
Some of the guards kind of, look a little hesitant, but one of the captains kind of goes, "Well, you heard her. Go on." And about probably 5 or 6 men leave the sort of group of guards that are standing there. Obviously, not all of them can go. They do have a duty to perform.
Mm-hmm.
But there's about 5 more guards that are going to come and assist. If nothing else, protecting the rights of the kill. You are kind of somewhat protected under the rules for Jaeger guilds. So your group killed it. You have first rights to it. It's just Like anything that happens to be, I don't know, several 100 tons, it's going to take a little while to get through.
Well, once that was established, she would keep riding back into town.
What are you going to do with your man who's injured?
Well, she would get into town, and once she was actually inside the town, she would be looking around for. I mean, they were only there one night, but would she know where some sort of infirmary is?
No, there really wouldn't be an infirmary. There would be the church. You could find a local convent that might be willing to take him in. You can take him back to the inn that you stayed at, the Addled Adder. These are basically your options there.
Well, she'd probably take him to the church then, because that's what she's familiar with. And she would very carefully dismount when she was out in front of it and be yelling for someone to come out and help her.
Several nuns wearing all white kind of rush out, and they pull the man off the horse and put him on a stretcher and take him back inside. They really don't ask you too many questions, mostly because his injuries are pretty obvious.
Yeah.
He's missing a leg, so they know what they need to focus on, and you've done a lot of the hard work, which is to stabilize him. He will most likely fully recover, but it's going to take a long time, unfortunately.
Well, she'd watch to make sure that he's off on his way, because she is a bit of a humanitarian. She's not a heartless monster, so she does want to make sure that the poor guy is doing all right, but they seem to have it under control. So once that's settled, she would take Adalbert and go and find some hitching post or something to tie him up to. I'm really not sure what's period appropriate, but just kind of settle him in and then go look for, go to the inn, I guess. And who am I looking for again?
You're looking for the trade guilds.
Gotcha, then she would go to those.
Were you going to the inn or towards the trade guild?
Trade guild.
Okay.
Sorry, Darby is not an adult, and she's
All
trying
right.
to play one, and it just doesn't compute all the time.
Give me a melancholic, please.
Yeah.
As you logically search. There we go. A lot of 13s tonight.
Yeah.
This is
Yeah.
kind of cool.
I'm just a blood-soaked damsel in distress. Please come help me.
You're actually able to find the trade guilds, and more specifically, you're able to find the processing guilds. Forsheim actually has it is amazingly easy to find, only because as soon as you ask someone about it, they tell you to follow the smell. Normally that's something someone would say if you're trying to look for a tanner, for example. But in this case, the processing of black bile, of adder blood, of armor plate requires very caustic chemicals, and the smell is somewhat repugnant. And pushed to the back wall on the southern side of the town, pretty much directly next to the river so that they can dispose of some of their byproducts, you find the processing guild. And the processing guild, like most guilds, is made up of several small companies that all kind of work under one protective banner. It's effectively a union, you know. They don't want to get outbid by someone from out of town. They're kind of protective of each other. But they are still technically competing with each other, still. So as you walk in, several people actually rush forward, and they see you covered in blood, and the first thing they ask is, "Are you all right? Do you need help?"
I'm perfectly fine. This is not my blood.
And there's sort of a strange look. Oh, okay. What can we help you with, miss?
Well, we downed the adder, and we need processing it.
Oh, of course. In fact, as soon as you say that, like 2 more people come in. There's like 4 or 5 of them standing in front of you now. What kind of services do you require?
Well, we downed it, but we only have about 6 men remaining, so we need help actually harvesting supplies out of it.
No problem at all. We have plenty of men to go around. It will cost probably about 80,000 for the armor. We'd be willing to do the bile for 30,000.
And out of character, I don't know if that's a high or low price, so...
You know what? Do you have any specialties in adder?
I have, hang on, what's it called? Processing.
Then you know that's very high.
Okay, well then,
Like literally bullshit high.
so
Yep,
she would
they're
just kind
fucking
of
you.
take a moment to kind of look at her hands that are covered in blood and pick some blood out from underneath one of her actually very well kept nails, and then take a moment to push some hair out of her eyes and just go, I wonder what some of the other guilds would do that for.
And you hear kind of a shout from the other, 50 and 5! Which is expensive, but not bullshit expensive.
I don't know. That seems a little much to ask of me, don't you think? She just kind of bats her eyelashes a little bit.
Yeah, you're gonna roll.
Everybody I know just died.
I'm gonna what?
You're gonna roll for that.
I know, I
Just
figured.
sideline. It's a succeed.
There you go.
One of the men kind of steps forward. You're absolutely right. 45 and 3?
That's a deal. And she extends her hand.
The guy nods, and you kind of several of the other guys kind of come up and like, do you need help? Do you need anything? They're like, yeah, I want you and James and this. And basically, you hired one guy for a price, and then all the rest are getting their day rate out of it. Which is surprisingly fair, but at the same time, even the people that gave you the bullshit price are still going to get paid out of this. So, they kind of all seem to get their things together. They don't ask you any questions about where to get it, because I think most of them had an idea. They've heard the commotion. They know roughly that they could kind of point, hey, where's the smoke and fire, and find it. About 10 minutes later, you kind of see them going out. They've got pretty big metal carts with these big wheels. I mean, these are obviously carts designed to haul away armor pieces that are probably 2 to 3 tons apiece. And they're pulled by 6 to 8 oxen. And they've got all of their laborers kind of in the back of them as they go rolling out of their little compound at the south. It's going to take them probably 2 or 3 hours to get to where the adder is. You have a lot more mobility because you can just go through the center of town. They can't. These carts are way too big.
Well,
So
once they had obviously set out on the right direction, she would, even though it's kind of obvious where this shit was, she would direct them a little bit so that they don't just end up 3 hours later across the river or something. So
that's probably useful, yeah.
Yeah, so she would actually tell them where to go, even if it is obvious. And then she would go, and once she was sure that they were moving in the right direction and that's all squared away, she would go get Adelbert again and mount up and basically go ahead of them to get back before they do.
Okay. You'd be able to do so handedly. But it's still probably going to be an hour. You'll probably will have been gone for an hour total. Orist. So as you climb the sort of shovel-nosed front of the beast, you can kind of see the exposed section of plate that had kind of been ripped off. And you see the mass of muscle-bound fixtures that kind of at one point held the core in place, but now there's almost this depressing-looking black hole in the top of it. It's a very narrow combine, and when it shattered, the core parts would have sunk down into the flesh. It's not immediately obvious how many parts are available, but you know that if you worked at it, you could probably get quite a few.
Yeah, he also has a processing background, so...
With your processing background, you know that you'd probably be looking about, from the size of the core that you saw, probably about 20 shards.
Alright, well, if that's the case, honestly, he is going to effectively just go to work doing that. He would have brought with him some kind of tools of the trade, since it's one of his backgrounds, and that this is kind of the part that his people know the best. This is what they are almost most concerned with. Everything else is very important, but where the kind of slow moving beasts of the north, it's more of a battle of attrition what you can kind of build and bring back to the communities with shard tech is a little bit more important than kind of the plates and things to them. So he's going to kind of go to work, try to pull out as many and process as many shards as he can, paying attention to make sure that he sets aside what he kind of feels are the best, most useful, knowing that, maybe it's perhaps just a bit of distrust and perhaps it's just knowing how the business is of shards, trying to put aside what he thinks are going to be the most useful to build with for himself and the group.
Okay. I'm going to need a melancholic roll because I need you to search out those shards. Okay. Give me 1d10, if you would. Wow, okay, that's pretty good. Alright,
Almost as good as it could get.
that is almost as good as it gets. So you're gonna actually, after, and it's gonna take you quite some time. This is not something you can do quickly.
This is essentially, before he goes to this, he would, knowing that Jurgen's kind of taken command, he would have went, and just, it's like, friend, excuse me, I'm going to attend to the core to make sure that we get our fair share from it. I have experience. I can at least take care of this.
Jurgen, sort of carrying half of a man, just kind of unceremoniously drops it on the ground. Well, it's a good idea to make sure that the trade guilds don't get their vulture claws on the most valuable part of the adder. It's a very good idea. Do you need any help?
I know, friend Jurgen, this is important to you, but is this best use of your time?
Jurgen sort of looks out across the pile of bodies that he's been gathering. No, I suppose not. They'll still be dead in a few hours.
Maybe. Sorry.
Oh, god damn it, Jay!
I'm not gonna say there's a shard missing, but there's a shard missing.
Oh my god.
God.
Do you know much about shard processing?
Not particularly, I must admit.
No, I think you are best at command here. I do not. This is important to you, friend, and I do not want to waste your time holding shards like some help boy.
Well, when Brita returns, she
Oh,
does.
boy.
When Brita returns, she does know a bit about the adder and Jurgen just blows a raspberry to a very confused Oris.
Could you roll melancholic to pronounce the word?
No.
Okay.
Oris nods, thinking it's a tradition. He's like, yes, friend.
Suddenly it's that SpongeBob episode.
Yeah, exactly. They're just everybody's blowing raspberries back and forth.
Oh my god.
Brita knows the adder anatomy as Jurgen stares off into space, piercing through the fourth wall with his hateful gaze to glare at the GM.
But you love God.
Alright, that's it. Dan wins. Goodbye.
Berthold. Sorry, Dan.
Yes.
Good. Yes. No. When Brita comes, we'll stick close and keep an eye and supervise. So you may deal with other things. We lost many people today, but it is how it goes in this profession. Usually, where I am from, it is the winter that kills, but here, much more exciting.
Well, I can't disagree with you there. It's going to get more exciting as winter fully recedes and the sun shines more properly again.
But yes, I will keep, and he kind of taps under his eyelid. I will keep an eye on trade guilds. And Rita will as well. You mind the rest of crew.
Yes, absolutely. I need to go see how Bertolt and Zygmunt are faring.
We done
And then Oris would
our
do that
sixth
thing that would
giant
happen
freaking
afterwards.
barrel.
Sorry, say that again, Zygmunt.
I said, like, as we get done moving our sixth full 42-gallon barrel of blood out of the way.
Well, fifth.
Oh, fifth. Okay.
50. It's like 4.6 something. Actually, I need to roll for that. No, actually, you succeeded both those rolls. Yeah, it's gonna be 200 gallons. So, just about 5 barrels.
Jeez.
I don't know why I'm trying to roll for that when that was already figured out.
Rolling dice fun.
Yeah. Bertolt, you're scavenging bodies, right?
Yep.
Give me a melancholic roll so I can start putting some value to what you're finding. Are you looking for anything over something else? Like, are you trying to pull out useful weapons or useful armor? Or are you just literally anything of value?
He'd put most emphasis on finding any like the least damaged Kletterpanzerung and weapons. And then from there it would just be mainly just valuables, pretty much stuff that they could use to for their party's funds. Any personal trinkets, like he would, if he felt there was any like a connection to that person, he's not going to take it from their body. He understands the necessity of taking what the party would need, but he's not so.
He's not great robbing.
Yeah, exactly. All right, let me find what to do.
Okay.
Oh.
So you actually, maybe it's the destruction of the chain. Maybe it's the fact that a lot of these porters and Aderjager were actually very sentimental. You, after a while, realize most of the stuff that's really valuable are personal items. You know, their gold lockets, their, family rings, their, those kind of things. Most of the armor really did very little to help those that have passed. And on top of that, as you're going, you kind of catch something out of the corner of your eye occasionally. And you see, like, little kids just kind of in the trees occasionally around you. They don't seem to be... They're trying very hard not to be seen, but you can kind of see they're doing the same thing you are. They're looking for body. They're looking for valuables on the bodies.
He's seen this before. Children and undesirables quickly trying to loot battlefields to basically eke out their existence, and he's not going to stop them from taking what they need it more than him, and they're going to be getting a significant haul with the Adder to begin with. So for some time trying to find some use of looting and everything, he just eventually just gives up and returns to the Adder to assist in moving the barrels whenever needed. Pretty much, his mind rather melancholic over the battle, the carnage of the battlefield, and reflecting on the children. Then had them having to be forced to root through that carnage to find something to help them exist.
Understandable. You do find one thing, though.
Mm-hmm.
You find Arno's head. His long black hair is probably the best way to carry this bloody stump of a head. It seems like the chain had severed it right below his upper jaw and taken the head off there instead of the more, I guess you could say, expected from the neck. Where his lower jaw is anyone's guess at this point.
Gross.
Well, Bert would he got confirmation enough. He would just perform the sign of the cross and then just leave it there pretty much.
Kick it over to Jurgen.
Meanwhile, if it's a whole new game that would become Central Europe's brand new thing.
Oh my
Football.
god!
I had to really hold the temptation to take the head and make a York joke.
Alas, poor Arno, you were an NPC.
We really didn't know you all that well, even though you led our company.
You were disposable.
The eulogy is gonna be so
Tutorial
fucking
NPC.
miserable for this. You were the best tutorial NPC that a level 1er could have. Thank you for the starter gear.
In retrospect, the red shirt really should have been a hint to us.
Rip in peace.
God bless and rip Arno. You were inspired by Jay playing Titanfall 2 campaign.
Yes, it's a little. By the way, excellent campaign. Everyone should play it. But anyway, okay. So Bert, a little disappointing, but in general, you did get some confirmation of, well, you know now that you all are basically the ones in control of the company. There's really not much left. Speaking of which, Jurgen,
Yes.
you took a bit of command, but then basically went and shoveled dirt. Have you been thinking during this time? What are your plans?
I have been thinking.
Okay.
Well, first thing is, we're going to need to rebuild the company, and Jurgen's more or less been on his mind of what available potential labor they have, because they're going to need more than just people who specialize in breaking down adders, although that would be helpful to have them come along. So offering to permanently hire some of the adder guild might be useful, as well as there is that train of refugees in town that was moving down south to the mines. He might be able to get some able-bodied porters and miners, at least people strong enough to carry gear and, you know, follow commands. So he's just kind of in his head working out the next step of where to go from here to rebuild the company.
Okay. You also would most likely notice the children picking through the bodies as you slowly sort of get the bodies ready for burial.
Jurgen's not going to be like Berthold and leave them be. He's actually going to shout at the children, stomp over there, calling out, "You damned vultures, if you'd like to make a penny..." Actually, pennies aren't a thing, are they? It'd be like a copper.
Yeah.
We have, what, Reichsgulden?
Yeah, we've got like Reichsgold.
Yeah.
If you'd like to make money off the dead, gather their bodies and I'll pay you. But leave their personal effects alone.
The children kind of react kind of like birds from a shore. As you kind of shout out, they sort of draw back. But you have to understand, these are not teenagers or even preteens. These are 7, 8-year-old kids at most. They're not going to be moving bodies anywhere.
Well, then Jurgen's going
They
to
could
yell at
move
them and
the
shake his
arms that
fist
are
to try and scare them
dismembered.
off.
And it works for a moment or two, but as soon as you go back to whatever you're doing, they drift back in, just like the birds in a tide.
What happened to those guards we were getting, those 5 or 6 guards? Have they arrived yet? Can I yell at them to keep the children off?
I mean, you can, yeah, sure.
I again, once the guards arrive, you're going to be like, "Help me." He would shout to the guards, "Help." Excuse me, I'm choking on my
Sir,
own
you
tongue.
okay?
Jurgen sort of touches that the big old bump on his head he got from slamming into the side of the adder. "I'm fine. Help me keep these children off the corpses. They're defiling these men's bodies. They fought bravely and deserve to take their things into the next life."
Well, we'll do what we can, sir, but we know these children. They kind of tend to show up at these situations. They're unfortunately somewhat good at it.
Well, do the best that you can.
All right.
And keep your eyes out for any sort of other unscrupulous sorts milling about. We wouldn't want this to turn into some sort of raid.
So that shouldn't have been 3D dice. Wow, they're really ineffective at stopping the children.
Wow.
I say Zygmunt seeing just
Wow.
how
They
upset
feel
Jurgen is
bad.
getting and how
Like
the guards are like chasing these kids around, finishes like hammering down the lid on the last barrel, and just takes off his helmet now that the mist has stopped falling, and just kind of silently walks up to the children, reaching at the wallet that's on his side, and like just he finds one that's not currently getting chased by a guard or lazily chased by a guard, and just kind of holds an open palm out.
No,
Like
with 3 ones roll, with 2 runs are rolled, the guards aren't chasing anybody. They're standing there, and you can literally watch, if you stand there long enough, see the kids pickpocketing the guards as they stand there.
right.
Oh my god.
Well, maybe I shouldn't offer them any money to leave.
Well, Jurgen, why don't you give me a choleric roll to see if you can truly scare them off for good?
Okay, let's see.
Because
Let's
these
see.
guards are so useless.
Yes.
Heyo.
Okay.
Okay.
here we-
Angry Christian man.
You start shouting about, the will of God and defiling bodies and other terrifying thoughts of hell and whatnot, and finally the children just go and at least disappear long enough that they're not able to just openly pickpocket the guards that stand there and fall asleep against their poles.
Jurgen says something in Latin to just express just how disappointed he is with the guards before turning tail and again returning to see how the blood collection process is going.
Mark XP too.
Yep.
Well, the blood collection seems like it's done, and about that time, Brito would return.
I was gonna say. Alright, Breeda's back. She would dismount, and assuming that Zygmunt is preoccupied with shenanigans, she would just kind of settle in Adelbert to just kind of chill somewhere on his own.
Yeah, he's a good horse. He'll
Yeah.
munch on whatever's left of the grass.
The grass salad with blood ranch dressing.
Yeah.
He's gonna get some protein in him.
Actually, yeah, probably should stay away from the adder blood, honestly.
Yeah, don't munch that grass.
Luckily, adder blood glows blue.
Probably doesn't taste too good either.
So, Orist, you've been collecting shards very precisely and very carefully, and you've kind of reached the point where you can't seem to find any more. Like you've delved as deep as you seem to be able to, and you were able to recover 19 shards. How do you plan on storing them?
That is a good question.
I try.
All right. Well, he will return back to his cart of kind of scraps, collected from the mill, and probably just set out just kind of tightly winding each of the scraps and kind of the burlap bags he had taken. And then you pretty much said that they had gathered more barrels than they possibly could use.
Oh yeah. Even if you assume that you are going to use the additional barrels for black bile, you're not going to get that much bile out of this beast. You would have used 5 barrels, of which you had 4 originally. So 1 of the 7 that you brought, and then even including the 3 more, you still have the 3 barrels unused.
Well, if that's the case, he is going to pretty much Effectively, like, what's the type of ground around here?
Dirt. I mean,
Dirt.
I'm sorry. You'll have to clarify a little bit more if you.
Like, is it just kind of like hard packed dirt? Yeah.
It's where you are would be somewhere between leaf litter because you were it was the tree line a few seconds ago. Now an hour ago. But yeah, for the most part, underneath leaf litter would be hard packed dirt.
If that's the case, pretty much what he's going to do is, he is going to essentially try to get as kind of loose leaf litter and dirt as he can, and kind of half fill a barrel.
Okay.
And then kind of place out the shards in layers. Maybe not half fill a barrel, like a reasonable,
right?
Like kind of like he lift it, then kind of just
couple inches of soil.
Yeah, lay it out, lay down a few of the shards that are kind of wrapped tight in burlap. Cover it lightly, do it again until kind of everything is doing it. Kind of lift it with a bit of a huff and just being, oh, it's much easier when you do this with snow.
Yes. Gosh. All right. Yeah, I'm gonna need a choleric roll. If you're hefting that barrel, I'm gonna need a choleric roll. Because that would say dirt-filled 120. Never mind. Orist is manly man.
We are on the ball with these green rolls tonight.
And he's not even lifting it with his arms. He's using his chest hair to get the dirt
Yeah,
in.
literally. It's just.
His chest hair has become prehensile.
That's it. I mean, he is. This has been a day of climbing, a day of lifting, a day of rigging up taps on top of an adder, lifting this barrel. He's just... Orist is very, very tired at this point.
I imagine so. But obviously not tired enough not to just heft this barrel.
It's,
which probably 200 pounds.
It's...
We're a very good lifting party.
Apparently.
Is that how you're carrying me?
Yeah, and he, in turn, would just kind of... Just, even with, like, this very reasonable, but... At this point, it's the reason it was so heavy and why it was so difficult is they are very safe and they are very kind of secure with what's been used around.
Okay. Can I get, and this is going to sound like bonus to everybody, but can I get melancholic rolls from everybody?
I'm still here, right?
You're still here.
Alright.
Oh, good. Everybody's going to succeed partially on this.
Can we all succeed collectively successfully?
Not Orist, he's tired.
Orist has a barrel on his shoulder he can't see. God, you all got 8s.
Yeah, what the shit is this?
The RNG tonight is just kind of like, I don't know, I think it's fucking with us.
It's once again, everybody all got 8s, but they all got 8s with different combinations of modifiers.
Yeah, they did. That
is bizarre.
Really bizarre.
No, it's because 2d6 is a very easily tracked curve.
That's true.
Indeed.
When it, hang on, sorry. In the stats, when it has the number next to them, which for most of us, I'm assuming at this point is just 0, -1, or 2, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Is that what's supposed to be in the parentheses after, where it has it on the roll listed?
No, it's you've got first the 2d6s, that's in the parentheses, and then outside the parentheses is the bonus.
No, I mean, if you actually just read the roll, it says Brita Losser's rolls melancholic, and then oh, you know what? I was looking at somebody else's. Please ignore me. Carry on.
Cool. I was gonna say, what? Okay.
Well, because, like, I have a 2 in my melancholic, and I was looking at Bertholt's roll, which has a 0. And I'm like, no, wait just a minute.
Yeah. Okay, I see where your confusion is, but your confusion is that you looked at the wrong thing.
It is indeed. Carry on.
Okay. Well, I guess everyone partially succeeding means everyone succeeds, at least in some sense. As you all are kind of working, you kind of have this strange feeling that you're being watched. And, the initial suspicion as well, that, there are guards right there, they're watching you. But as you look over, you realize most of them are asleep. There's one or two that are kind of, kibitzing and talking to each other. But for the most part, the ones that were kind of further out are just kind of leaning on their spears, and good luck guessing whether they're alive or dead at this point. But at least one of them is snoring quite loudly. They are not the best help, at least in a guarding role.
Pat on the back, Brita.
Again, you might have suspicions it's the kids. But as you kind of scan the area, no, that's not where that strange feeling is coming from. But eventually you find it. Probably about 300-400 feet away, there's a group of riders wearing black and yellow, kind of standing on their horses. They're not, they haven't dismounted. They're just kind of at the distance. You can't quite make out features, but you can definitely see the black and yellow sort of cloaks that seem to even drape over the horses themselves. And they're just sort of standing there, watching you.
Would Jurgen recognize these black and yellow cloaks?
I think that would be a good thing for a roll, actually.
Okay. I'm gonna say melancholic, since that's racking his brain to see if he remembers.
Sounds about right. You succeed. You can't say for sure, because obviously a lot of the identifying of Aderjager groups is based around, direct symbols. But color-wise, yeah, you recognize the colors. These are, well, you're assuming, of course, because these are so far away, it's hard to confirm. But from what you can tell, these look to be like riders from the Order of St. Michael.
Well, at that point, Jurgen's going to walk over to one of the perimeter guards who is currently sleeping and kick the bottom of his spear out from under him.
The guard would literally collapse to the ground.
Like to help
and
you
then
guys
get
out.
up and kind of curse loudly and pull his spear up at you. Like, what is the big deal? What's that for?
And Jurgen cants his head towards the gathering of the riders and says, "Get the rest of the men on guard." Jurgen then would, without waiting for whatever the hell the guardsman has to say, turn and start walking out into the woods towards the riders to speak with them. Just to confirm his suspicions.
I think Brito
Okay.
would. Wait, hang on. Would Brito recognize us at all if he did? I don't know exactly what
Give me another color.
well of knowledge that would be from. So
Oh, wow, the guards apparently have woken up. Okay, so they go around and start waking each other up, effectively.
they're good at that then. Yeah.
Yes,
Okay.
you
So
would.
apparently I know what's up. Then she would follow after Jurgen too.
Okay, yeah, I'm going to give you that identification, but because it's not 11 or 12 or 13, I'm not going to give you additional info, but we'll go with that. As you kind of begin approaching, they are not close. They're quite a distance away, but you could slowly make the walk towards them. They don't seem to retreat. Go ahead.
Well, as he does, Jurgen's just sort of slowly putting his gauntlets back on. He still hasn't lowered his visor. He's still got it up so he can see and breathe more adequately, as well as, not quite present as much of a menacing figure as a man with the visor down.
Right.
But he is going to put his gauntlets back on just in case.
Okay.
Since there is definitely a certain, what's the word for it? Stigma attached to the
Ominous?
Order of St.
Oh.
Michael's.
St. Michael.
St. Michael, sorry.
Only one.
No, like 13
That
Michaels.
supplies.
As you get closer, they don't seem to move. I mean, they look at you. Obviously, they're not statues, but they don't call out or approach or turn away. But they seem to be keeping a pretty comfortable distance away from the adder. They don't seem like they're trying to move in on your kill.
Well, Jurgen would greet them, saying, "Hail, fellows. Am I correct in assuming that these colors are the Order of St. Michael?"
There's no response.
Not even a nodded head, nothing.
Not a nod, nothing. Their faces are completely covered in what's sort of like a pierced faceplate of crosses. You can't really see their face or eyes behind it.
So I've got a bad feeling about this. In fact, Zygmunt will kind of circle around the adder and then call Adalbert to his side and actually mount Adalbert as he watches Jurgen and Brita walk up to these riders.
Well,
Is-
Jurgen pauses briefly. Again, he does. Since I did succeed in my melancholic role, and
Right.
I, out of character, remember a few things about the Order of Saint Michael.
Yes.
He's going to again pause and just sort of allow them, give them the opportunity to express themselves with body language. And when they don't, he will simply continue. This is. I'm Jurgen of the Order of Saint Benedict. We've killed this adder ourselves and claimed it. While we would have appreciated any help that the Order of St. Michael could have offered, this is, as of right now, our kill. And we reserve our rights to it.
The three riders kind of look at each other, then look back at you, and don't seem to have a response, positive or negative. Other than turning to look at each other, there didn't seem to be much of a shrug between them.
Well, Jurgen again pauses that extra moment just to allow them to, again, if they so chose, to express themselves with body language. And when they don't, he will simply say, actually, give me a moment to collect my thoughts. My brain literally died as soon as I opened my mouth there.
Yeah, while he's doing that, does in situations like this, I guess, would melancholic work similar to like a spot hidden type of thing?
Yes.
Okay, can I do that?
Sure. What are you
Just to
looking
s-
for specifically?
I'm looking to see like if there's anything about them aside from the fact that they're obviously presented kind of emotionless because of the way that they're covered. If there's anything like what word I'm looking for?
Waldschrotty.
Yeah, Waldschrotty about him, you know? Anything that's significantly out of place enough on a human that it would kind of explain why they're being so aloof type of thing.
Go ahead.
All right.
No, actually. Almost all of their flesh is covered. But there's nothing. When you encountered, if you've encountered Waldschrott before, you know they have a very. Occasionally they are quiet and they don't speak, but this is almost a practiced stoicism.
Mm-hmm.
This is a literal. These people are putting on a front of what might as well be a stone wall. They don't seem to be turning. Their horses are standing remarkably still. And they are wearing very fine cloth, very well made, and very heavy cloth that doesn't show a lot of, body movement underneath, even if they were doing so.
I imagine that not every inch of the horses are covered, so are
No,
they
no,
just
no.
normal horses from
They're
what I
just
can tell?
normal horses. They're
Gotcha.
beautiful black horses, but they are not. They are normal horses.
Gotcha. All right, then I'm useless here. Carry on.
Jurgen sort of clears his throat and says, I sincerely hope that both of us can agree that no more blood needs to be shed today. And I wish God's grace upon you all. And that with that, Jurgen would sort of, again, pause for a moment, and I'm going to take this opportunity. Can I use melancholic as a form of sense motivation or a psychology roll to see just sense motive kind of thing?
Ooh. Normally I would actually say sanguine.
Okay, I
believe
could
it
do
or not,
sanguine.
because that's more of the the emotional empathetic side of things.
Okay, then let's see if I can do sanguine to sense motive on these guys.
Okay.
Well,
You got a partial succeed.
yeah?
That still counts. I mean, you don't get everything you want out
You're
of
right,
it,
right,
but-
absolutely. It's partial.
You can tell they're obviously there to watch you. You can tell there's a lot of concern, obviously, because they sort of showed up rather quickly, so they must have been either in the area or specifically watching your group. That's hard to tell. I mean, you don't just show up within an hour of an adder kill without being
Forewarned.
forewarned of some sort, right? And there was you had no evidence that no one had contacted the Order of St. Michael about this adder. In fact, you were literally the only Aderjagers in town, last you knew. So if they had ridden, they had been close. And if they had been in town, why were they not the first group to take on the adder?
Well, with that sort of information, Jurgen would incline his head respectfully and grab Brita to head back to the site.
Before you turn, two of the one in the center and the one on the right actually look at each other, and they both look to the slightly taller man on the left. And the slightly taller man on the left basically makes the sign of the cross between you and him, and they all three turn just about the same time you turn, and you go your separate directions.
Jurgen would, of course, repeat the sign of the cross, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. But yeah, then they're going to head back to the site, and this time he's going to grab that guard that he had caught napping earlier and say, make sure the men stay awake this time.
Oh, well, yes, sir. We'll do our best, he says slightly sarcastically. He doesn't actually report to you. He is literally just helping.
Jurgen
So
narrows
if you
his
want
eyes.
to intimidate him,
No, this isn't worth potentially getting a bad roll on, but otherwise he's going to narrow his eyes at the man and make a mental note to speak to his... Actually, is the captain there?
no, the captain never left his post.
Okay, that's what I figured. Then yes, Jurgen is just going to make a mental note to speak to his captain later, but otherwise heads back towards where he sees Zygmunt. And once it's him, Zygmunt, and Brita, he's going to update Zygmunt on what it was that they saw out there.
So Zygmunt had his hand on his sword at his hip this entire time, and then, finally, when Jurgen reports back, Zygmunt's eyes hadn't left where the three riders had been the entire time that Jurgen was walking back. But yeah, as Jurgen fills him in, before Jurgen says anything, Zygmunt says, friends of yours?
I suspect the Order of St. Michael, although if they are the Order of St. Michael, then they couldn't confirm it, and if they aren't the Order of St. Michael, then they did a very good job of playing the part. As people sort of are quiet, he elaborates, the Order of St. Michael are mutes. They take a vow of silence. Which, those riders were not exactly the most talkative types, but again, that is no confirmation of their status. They did seem to fit the part, though.
And they are Aderjagers? Seems rather inefficient.
Well, they are Aderjagers of a sword. Theirs is a holy mission from God himself. They don't take money for their kills. They take both vows of poverty and silence, as well as they don't return the spoils of their victories to the guilds or to the towns. In fact, it's quite a mystery what they do with the bits and pieces.
I'm just a bit curious as to what they were doing in the area.
So
Indeed.
if they are of this order, then we shouldn't have anything to worry about.
Oh no, quite the opposite. If they are the Order of St. Michael, then we have quite a bit to be concerned about, because if they had been here to hunt this adder, why were they not the ones here first? If they had not... If they were here to hunt this thing, then why did we even get involved? They should have taken care of it. So why were they here if not to hunt the adder, and why would they return to the site and he sort of looks at the sky to count the passing of the sun, hour or more after its death? That is concerning, because they must have been aware of its presence and did not act, or they were after something else.
Well, I would worry that this was a scouting party and they might come back later with more numbers.
If they mean us harm, perhaps.
True.
I think we ought to speak to the captain of the guard about the discipline of his men.
And at that point, the guild would show up with their massive clanking wagons and tools and probably 2 scores of men or more, all start converging on the beast. And at that point, we're going to leave it for tonight. Thank you all for joining us. This has been another episode of Aderjager, and we'll have a lot more to look forward to in the coming weeks. Thank you for joining us.
Also,
Thanks for tuning in.
Don't forget to tune in on this channel, Tinker Tabletop, on Thursday night to The Shield Against Midnight, a Call of Cthulhu game set in 1969.
Starring the most reluctant group of CIA operatives ever.
And a dog from hell.
Aw,
Good night, everybody.
goodbye.